wonderforce.com.
My esteemed readers who have gone through my books, as well as the audience of the Int community who are right now listening to ATAB radio, I outline my intent in writing the three manuals on counter-int, that is human, as well as on company level intelligence capability, that is pushing down intelligence to the boot level. My intent is to incorporate solution for uncertainty in warfare in existing doctrine. Uncertainty, that's a very important term. Uncertainty. Uncertainty leads to surprise, something which is the primary endeavor of any commander in warfare, be it the enemy or be it us. We have surprise, we have advantage on our side. Indications and warnings surely afford the solution, but indications and warning often lead to a reactive int collection. We wait until a new capability or weapons system is discovered. Mind you, we wait. We do not proactively send in a counter-int agents to find out what plans they're up to and whether they are going to develop a new weapon system or capability or not. We do not do that. Rather, we wait for the thing to happen, and then when that thing has happened, we send in an operators to collect information, and that is what I call reactive int. It is not proactive int. That capability or system is implemented by the enemy with devastating results. Still, we cannot counter it as it being new. We do not have a defense system nor a counter system. And by the time we develop it, they have either have had sufficient time to test it practically on us, mind you, or develop it further, or we have had terrible losses in armed forces, installations, command control nodes, or for that matter, overall defeat. Here we are taken by surprise by an enemy which is adaptive. An asymmetric enemy is asymmetric in the sense that we are a strong military force. We are much more dominant. We are the force of a nation, the military force of a nation, complete with our regiments and armaments and weaponry systems and command control centers and headquarters and whatnot, corps and regiments and whatever it is, the divisions and brigades. And these people, they are either terrorists, or they are these insurgents, or even the conventional enemy can also have an asymmetric disability in terms of warfare if we possess a superior weapon to which the enemy has no match. Had we incorporated adaptability, creativity, exploration, continual experimentation, critical reviews of existing tactics, techniques, procedures, and SOPs in light of information about an asymmetric enemy, with our counter-int being totally offensive. I mean totally offensive. That means penetrating, infiltration, finding out their plans so that they do not launch a surprise tactic or a capability to offset the asymmetric disadvantage they are suffering from. If you had all this before the indicators surface, that's why I said reactive int collection. Before the indicators surface, you know nothing of the plans. Then we wouldn't be taken by surprise and we would have been prepared for that new developed capability or weapon system. That is, we would have got an asymmetric advantage over the enemy. The enemy desires an asymmetric advantage over us by adapting to our tactics and techniques and bringing in further newer tactics and techniques for which we are unprepared, we do not have a match, and with this asymmetric advantage, the enemy inflicts heavy damage on us and we are unprepared for it. Similarly, we should go the same way. We should work out the same methodology. This is the age of asymmetric warfare. Here, we are not fighting conventional forces with predictable order of battles, predictable weaponry systems. We do not know what they are doing. Literally, we do not know what they are doing. In Ent, we say that we try to know the unknown. But it should actually be like this. We see an indicator, we send in an agent to find out what's happening. Fine. Intelligence should be something which we do not know anything at all. Even the enemy should be, I say the enemy is totally silent. There's no activity. They say that if an enemy has intent and capability, then that enemy is a dangerous enemy. Without intent or without capability, I mean, any of these two is missing, we say the enemy is not a danger to us. Fine, the enemy has an intent but no capability. But what is the guarantee that it doesn't have the capability? It might be making up a capability. That is where we need offensive counterint. We cannot just stay silent. The enemy has no intent but capability, or has capability but no intent, so no danger. Okay, then let's rest on the laurels. No, we gotta find out something else is going on there, somewhere behind the scenes, behind the curtain. In present times, we are dealing with asymmetric enemies more and more, be it insurgency, terrorism, or even conventional enemy with a solid, devastating new capability or weapon system or tactics which far offsets the capabilities, weapon systems, or tactics, granting him an asymmetric advantage. Let's start by touching on tactics and techniques and procedures in light of asymmetric warfare. Tactics. This is at the point of engagement. We have a repository of tactics laid down the ages by different types of combat scenarios. In order to counter an enemy's attack, we resort to an arrangement of methods known as tactics. We cannot depend on one particular tactic, mind you. What we have is a menu. We simply choose which one suits the current tactical operational environment to inflict a defeat on the enemy. We can never have a surety of which tactic to use in the case of asymmetric warfare. Each application is unique. It could be that previously the tactic was used with success in one particular type of combat situation. It could very well be that the asymmetric enemy has adapted itself to most of existing tactics. Mind you, has adapted, the word adapted. The enemy has adapted itself to most of our existing tactics and invented their own newer tactics. And here we are caught badly. We have nothing in the menu to choose from, the menu of existing tactics in a doctrine. An adaptive enemy can inflict havoc if a doctrine is not flexible, it is not adaptable, is tuned only to conventional form of warfare. We should remember uncertainty leads to a lapse in the situational awareness and development of the commander. Thus, he does not know what to plan and thereafter what tactics, techniques, or procedures he will employ. Doctrine should focus, should, I stress on the word should. Doctrine should focus well on a warning system. There should be a warning system incorporated, embedded in the doctrine to envisage and implement a good warning system so as to reduce a critical factor uncertainty and hence eliminate surprise. SURPRISE, the most important element in any, most important objective every nation tries to achieve. We need a solid proactive intelligence setup in place, the robust counter-int framework to prevent this surprise. We need offensive counter-int. Surprise is the thing we have to avoid. Uncertainty will lead to surprise if we do not properly use our intelligence resources or if we do not incorporate adaptability in our doctrine, adapting our tactics and techniques to those of the enemy, and try to invent further newer tactics and techniques which gives us an asymmetric advantage over the enemy. Let's come down to certain points. Number one, without a good int setup, we cannot fathom enemy's intentions. Hence, uncertainty exists. Here we need a real solid intelligence setup. Human, counterint, SIGINT, technical measures, overhead surveillance systems, but these go for conventional warfare. If you're dealing in a jungle warfare, dealing with urban insurgency, the line of sight is obstructed in the case of overhead surveillance platforms. In that case, we only have human and counter to work up, to help us, aided with SIGINT. We cannot totally focus on technical measures. In fact, mind you, we are going back to the previous old days where the man on the ground, the agent, was the only source of information. We are going back to those days, and mind you, it has time, with history, down the ages, it has been proved that the human agent, the human operator, the human agent is the most versatile int resource we ever had. Number two, we have intelligence reports about the timing, plan, and in existence of an enemy attack. Fine. We have a full int report, an int summary, or a int rep we have with us. Okay, fine. This is going on. This is the timing and plan and existence of enemy attack. But point is, we interpreted so badly after the attack happened that uncertainty still exists as to why the damned attack happened. Here again, intelligence failed. We did get intelligence on plan fine, on timing fine, and on the attack itself, but could not collect sufficiently to decipher the strategic intent of the enemy. And what was the intent? To surprise us with a weapon or a tactic which was a surprise weapon and tactic, which was intended to offset the asymmetric disadvantage the enemy was suffering because of a superior dominant military force. Or even the intermediate intent. We don't know even that. We defined our int requirements improperly. This is very critical to understand collection management. I've put this in my book on human. Int requirements. Our commanders, or most of our commanders, or even the lower level, the lower echelon staff, they do not define the int requirements properly. If the definition of the int requirements are not made properly, if you do not prioritize your int requirements, if you do not, I mean to say that if your intelligence requirements are not in a clear picture, you don't know what resources to use. You're supposing you need to know something about A. Now, what we need to know about A is the intelligence gap, the thing we don't know about A. If we can define that properly, then we can utilize our resources in a proper manner into resources, and that's collection. That is asset management, so that we can go for further collection management. Operatives going in, giving us information. That's it. But supposing we define our end requirements in a wrong manner, then we are totally going in the wrong direction. We're wasting our resources. Something is called ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, synchronization. We are not synchronizing it. That means our assets are being improperly used, while those assets could have been used by other parallel units, by other, units in the battlefield. Instead of doing that, we are misusing our resources as we are going in the wrong direction. If we had the right requirements in mind, of course, it would be a different scene altogether. This is usually not in the case. Is this usually not the case in conventional warfare, where we can make good guess about the OB, conduct an intelligence preparation of the battlefield, conduct aerial reconnaissance, exploit using counter-int, and intercept radio signals. But in asymmetric warfare, in urban jungle terrain, all this is very difficult or near impossible. We cannot use all our int resources. Sometimes it's impractical to use them. Supposing we get imagery reports about something going on. Now, to interpret those imagery reports among the scores of reports lying in waiting, it takes time. And by that time, we don't have the actionable intelligence. That's a very important term, actionable intelligence, and even that is a factor in asymmetric warfare. 3. Even the existence of a new weapon by the enemy or tactic creates uncertainty. Okay, we have information on this new weapon, fine. But did we study it closely? Did we log all the attacks made by this new weapon, or did we focus only on its particular characteristics which just fits our current tactical requirements? We did not look at the future. If it's a new tactic developed by the enemy, did you explore to see how often it has been used and what degree of success? The latter can pinpoint our vulnerabilities to this type of attack. As the potential for asymmetry increases, so does the level of uncertainty and the potential for tactical, operational, and strategic surprise. This is a very important point to understand. If our enemy is far, far, and far weaker than us, we should not underestimate it. Because as asymmetry increases, the enemy becomes desperate to bring out or to evolve newer methods to offset this asymmetric disadvantage. And here we are caught unawares. These three cases demonstrate that despite good collected intelligence, there will still be gaps. And in the case of the elusive asymmetric enemy, these gaps can be big. And these intelligence gaps need to be identified, intelligence requirements carefully defined in line with these gaps, and a collection protocol devised. Only then we can reduce uncertainty and hence the critical element surprise. There is no playbook of tactical solutions or prescription solutions. In doctrine, we have a set of tactics. Okay, this is for that particular scenario, that particular scenario. We cannot employ a prescribed tactical solution for every tactical operation. We need an admixture. Okay, I'm not saying that doctrine is we got to reject doctrine. I'm not saying that we have to discard everything in doctrine. Those things that work, keep them, but those things that do not work, discard them. If we do not account for asymmetry in our doctrine, then we are nowhere, because the modern age warfare is more asymmetric than purely conventional on peer-to-peer basis. Force protection. This is an issue which, unfortunately, in India, do not give much thought to. Or rather, I should say that we are concerned with the protection of our bases, our forces from terrorist attacks, from asymmetrical enemy, but we do not have a comprehensive doctrine, a comprehensive set of tactics, techniques, and procedures, a comprehensive setup of intelligence and counter-int techniques or random measures to protect our forces from the enemy's sporadic attacks, attacks intended to give the enemy an advantage, a decisive advantage, as the enemy is far weaker than us. We are far strong. So this is a case of asymmetric warfare. An enemy seeks to get an asymmetric advantage by demoralizing our troops, the government, our forces, by attacking our bases, killing our officers, reducing our efficiency. Force protection should be the mainstay of any superior force. We must first defend ourselves adequately and fully. It is only then can we garner all our resources and go in for an attack. What we do is we focus primarily on moving out, projecting our forces for an attack, and we pay, I'm not saying lip service to protection. We have the watchtowers in place, we have the sentries in place, the guards in place, the gates are secure, but these are routine SOP of force protection which we are following, which the enemy has studied the pattern, the movement patterns, the vehicular patterns, the itinerary of the officers, the soldiers. He can predict and then attack when he wants to attack. We need to do a lot of things to induce force protection. Force protection is something which I should say should be the prime objective of any commander. I'm not saying to negate the prime objective of the commander to know the intent of the enemy. It is always the primary requirement of the commander to know the intent of the enemy so that he is not surprised. But then, when you want to know the intent of the enemy, it also becomes a force protection problem. Because the intent of the enemy is to attack our bases, attack our defensive structures, attack us when we are in a defensive position, to degrade our capabilities. So force protection is an issue. Otherwise, we will face cases like Pathankot, like the two CEOs who were killed. The two CEOs belong to the Rajarif in Kashmir, Jammu Kashmir. the 72 CRPF personnel killed elsewhere, and all the sporadic attacks on CRPF personnel by the Naxalites and by the Maoists when they are not in an attack formation, or when they are in rest, or when they are in the bases. The innumerable examples of force protection is used throughout the world. The American bases have been attacked by terrorists when they are unprepared. Force protection should be of I repeat, a major objective of the commander. The Foreign Intelligence Service conducts intelligence collection about our forces and hostile attack. Here comes a very important concept of the thing I'm saying, force protection. These enemies target defense, personnel, resources, activities, and critical information. Counter-int support to force protection involves actions to prevent or mitigate hostile actions against these entities. It should be noted that the military police functions are not adequate to cover the security of these entities. CI support is a must in a deployable situation. The enemy targets the vulnerable rear positions and the support elements. Hence, security is beefed up where troops are housed. Dependents and other personnel are made aware of the threat, and this is where the CI elements active. We need counter-int. We need human, we need passive human, we need active human, but overall we need counter-int. We cannot relegate counter-int to the backbench. I mean, we just cannot use counter-int just as a supplement for human or for any other int discipline. Counter-int in itself is a very, very, very powerful discipline. It is confusing. One might say it is not an intel discipline. One might say it is an intel discipline. Well, the argument's always there, but this is not the time to argue. We need counter-int. We need people to send out from our bases down to communities in the several areas to mix with them, to create informant networks. We need to know from the police authorities, from the politicians, from the nexus of the criminals and the police nexus. We need to know who's coming in, who's going out in the community surrounding the bases. We should not focus ourselves only in the rear areas in the terms of war or in a battle, or when we are focusing only on the installation and its security, and we are not concerned with what's going on outside. Take the case of Fort William. We are not concerned at all what's going on outside in Kitapur, in Iqbalpur, in Momanpur, in Fancy Market area. We are concerned with security of the George Gate, East Gate, South Gate. I have myself submitted a plan where I have located the vulnerability of the South Gate and the FIS, Foreign Intelligence Service target is the ECCIU, Eastern Command Counter-Int Unit, just near South Gate. And very recently there was an attack. No, sorry. There was an incident on the Red Road. Air Force personnel was killed. Well, it can be a case of normal accident. It can be a case of attempted surveillance by a terrorist group. It was a dry run. You could ever say. It was a dry run by a terrorist group who used that car to make 1 or 2, 3 runs in front of the South Gate, to know the guard patterns and everything. We never know what will happen that day. The point is, we should focus beyond our installation. We should project our int assets beyond our installations into the communities around it. We should liaise with the police, with the government officials. We should create a separate Force Protection Int Unit, FPIU, Force Protection Int Unit, which will conduct int activities and counter-int activities to know any new strangers in the area, to know any new developments in the area, to keep a tab on the open source intelligence information feeds. That is what local meetings are being held. Don't forget that in the Shahid Minar near Fort William, there was a Jamaat meeting of the people supporting the accused who were arrested by the NIA elsewhere in West Bengal on charges of keeping bombs. There was a case of bomb explosions, a series of bomb explosions, which was discovered, and the NIA was involved. And these people were accused and arrested. And before they were, they were in judicial custody. But there was a protest in Shahid Minar by a huge what do you call it? A huge mass of Muslims in just nearby Fort William. These are open source internet news, the newspapers, the radios, everything. They tell us what's going on in the city, who is coming, who is going. These things, whatever developments happen in the city and elsewhere, and in areas in close proximity to the camp, to Fort William, we can know what's going on, what the elements coming in. And these are force protection issues. They might be force protection issues. They might hint at some untoward development happening near the military areas, or maybe a direct open attack inside the military area. Force protection is something we should be concerned with. The military police is not sufficient. The military police is not sufficient, I repeat, not sufficient to prevent any enemy attack. We need a proper mixture of military admixture of military police personnel, of civil affairs personnel, of counter-int personnel, human personnel, all in one go, all in one small unit with human and CI elements in the fore, so that we can interact with the local administration, with the police authorities, with the politicians, with the local clubs, with the informal network, to know, to get a situation, to a situational awareness of the entire area beyond the perimeter of the installation, beyond the perimeter of Fort William, beyond the perimeter of the base in Kashmir, beyond the perimeter of the Lucknow Air Force Base. I noted that the Air Force base is quite small near the airport. They have kept the aviation fuel tanks close, very, very, very close to a fence, the boundary fence. So these things can be blown out. They can be easily blown up if a grenade is lobbed over there, or any other improvised explosive device. It can blow up the entire damn thing, and the base is gone. So this is a force protection problem. I don't know how they ignored this point, and they have housed two big, medium tanks of aviation fuel right near the boundary. So these things are something we should be considered. In part one, I'm just giving a simple introduction. The military police and allied elements take stock of the situation in the army area, but are less aware of the ground situation outside the fence. Hence, recourse is made to establish contact with civil intelligence agencies and local police for updates on any threat intelligence in the proximity of the base. Moreover, the military police have no jurisdiction outside the base, mind you. That's the police work, and that is where we need their help. We definitely need their help. Strengthening the physical defenses is one way to prevent the application of hostile intent, but what is more important is enemy pre-operational surveillance activities. The difficulty is that these activities are innocuous. We don't know what happened that day during the day this car accident which killed the Air Force personnel. Whether it was pre-operational surveillance of the terrorist, or whether it was a simple hit and run case. Let's take an example to illustrate the point. A vehicle approaches the gate of a military camp. On being questioned questioned by the guard on duty, the driver says he had no intention to turn up there. He has made a wrong appearance at the wrong time. He's not supposed to be there. He says, yes, I'm not supposed to be here, but it was the mistake. I had no intention to come to military camp. I got here by mistake. Now, this is an acceptable excuse by the military police, mind you, and further interrogation may not help. Now, what he has said will not, will not make the military police search as a vehicle or this thing. They have no grounds to do this. We live in a democratic country. We need something in hand, some proof, evidence to, further prosecute the individual and to and search him. The driver is instructed to leave the area. Fine. It is equally possible he is saying the truth, but consider a situation where the threat index in the area is high, and hence, from the force protection perspective, the driver, who can equally well be an insurgent or a terrorist, has just conducted successfully a pre-operational surveillance. Now, what did I say? The force protection index in the area, the FP index area, or I can say the threat index in the area. The threat index in the area is high means we have been amassing information from all angles, the civil, the police, the administration, using our int and our counter int assets. And we have created an index in that area. Say, a red for very severe, orange for medium and quite severe, but medium, and say a yellow for less severe, and say green for below minimum threat levels. So if threat levels which we keep a tab on in that area, say the area encompasses Fort William, Iqbalpur, Esplanade, Dalhousie, Momentpur, up to Fancy Market, down to Command Hospital, this area we can create a threat index. Then if these index colors change as per input feeds which the int people get in, we can accordingly create a system of heightened surveillance, or say less heightened surveillance. So these things we can keep a tab on the vehicular traffic, on the people in installations, or any incidents, and we can find out whether the incident was premeditated surveillance, or that it was something abnormal happening. Now, there are options. The license details of the driver can be jotted down. Okay, fine. You are not here accidentally. Okay, I simply jot down the license details. The car details and license plate number can be taken. Offhand queries can be made. A listing can be made of all lost motorists, all lost people, of lost motorists. So all the drivers were lost who turn up accidentally, mind you, in these areas. I make a list of them. The information can be shared with the local police. If it is found out the same driver has turned up at other installations with the same theory, okay, fine. Here we have a point. Here you have a point. Well, we have a cause of pre-operational surveillance, and with the jotted information in hand, steps can be taken to apprehend the person. But still, the case is rare, as there are several instances of genuine lost car drivers, bike drivers, or motorists in general. Whatever, any installation together with its constituent personnel, their dependents, operations, and information is susceptible to hostile attack and intelligence collection. CIA elements must shield the installation from such intent by guarding the rear and vulnerable areas, but also the entire damn installation in case if we are in peacetime. CIA should lend support to mobilization security, major records repositories, anti and counterinsurgency operations, rear operations, psychological operations, battlefield deceptions, operation security, and counter SIGINT. All these in case of wartime and also in case of peacetime, all the related variables. We can categorize the threats based on intent. This can be incorporated in the force protection doctrine. Hence, we can allocate human resources in an appropriate manner without any duplication or wastage. Type 1 can be criminal activity geared towards army bases. Type 2 can be penetrative reconnaissance and sabotage operations, and type 3 can be major land, amphibious, air, and missile attacks. Thus, commanders can tailor defensive actions compatible with the type of attack. The mission of counter-int can be clearly defined, objectives stated, and quantitative protocols in collection efforts underscored, keeping each type of attack in perspective and with the notion of counter-int as looking inwards. Mind you, human is looking outwards. Looking inwards in mind, we identify the critical areas of installations and implement security measures. That is the vulnerability analysis method, VAM. At the same time, we can launch aggressive counter-int operations to frustrate enemy intelligence collection efforts. So far in part 1. In part 2, I'll touch further on the force protection issue. Again, I'll define it. Again, we'll focus why we need force protection. In part 3, I'll detail on the techniques and procedures. And this way will continue until we get a reasonable, we can amass a reasonable information